Hello, Anna Sabramowitz here from eLearner Engaged, and today I'm going to talk to you about scenarios. Okay, so I wanted to talk about scenarios obviously because I have a scenario design course that's going on and it's almost in its final stages, and now we're just doing the reviews. So I'm pretty excited about that. The next stage is going to be refining this, hopefully being able to implement some of the lessons learned, getting good feedback. That's all happening right now, but also generating more examples to use in the course. But then being able to maybe structure it into a live workshop that I'll be able to put together and then travel hopefully across Canada and do this live workshop, because one of the things I want to do is also help companies implement this with their teams. And I think sometimes people, as I said, the people that are taking my online course are people who are trying to squeeze that in between work, and it's very difficult. So if they can somehow dedicate a day to maybe discussing some of these strategies with me, I'm thinking 2 days. It might be better to be intensive, and then we'd have follow-up sessions that they can do with me, like a webinar style thing, to follow up with me. Because I think one of the things that's really challenging during those workshops, one, you have to learn all day, and we're not used to doing that. Nobody's used to doing that. You're trying to absorb information all day. And then two, if you don't apply those things, like how many workshops have you gone to that were like great in the moment, and then you had, let's say you went alone or you went with people who didn't help you apply in the workplace, there was just simply no scaffolding for you to apply, therefore you lost it. So for me, one of the biggest pieces is then to create regular check-ins after the workshop that people actually commit to participating in, that then they helps them apply the strategies, and actually as they encounter the tragedies of real workplace obstacles, they're able to actually overcome them as we work through them with the webinar. So I feel like the workshop would be kind of like the introduction, but the real application happens as we do the webinars, and I think that would be a really good model. So let me know what you think about that, and if you've had that kind of support model, I think I'd love to know your experience about that and what you found useful, because I think obviously people through different as they go back to work, they might have different levels that they're applying these strategies at. So how do you make the webinars work for them that it's actually effective? So the other piece that I was thinking about is scenarios are dangerous, and only in the sense that they can really take up so much of your time, and you feel like you're getting somewhere, and you feel like you're designing something beautiful and relevant and contextual, but then you realize that you didn't maybe focus on the right piece, and nobody's really going to look at this because it's not really as pertinent as you were sold or told that it was. And I've been in that situation where the data was out of date, and we were looking at old data as far as what were the most challenging or the most pertinent problems to solve, and invested a lot of time in areas that really didn't make a big impact. And that's one of the things that I feel is important when you're designing your scenario. And I mean, some of the students that I've talked to have stressed that, when they are working on a project, they really are the people that execute somebody's wish. They don't get to be a part of the decision-making process as far as what that wish is. However, trying to gather data about what the most painful errors are, you can still do that. And you still always have to vet it against some kind of a metric, whether that's, are we contributing to the bottom line? Is me focusing the scenario on this mistake actually going to have enough of an improvement to make it worth all of our collective time? Because scenarios take time to develop, and they take interviews, and they take iterations and drafts. So, and obviously multimedia development as well if you're going fancy. So there's a lot involved, and you have to have your beacon. And that's why I like Kathy Moore has this formula, which she asks you to set up, and it's to help you focus on the big business picture. And yeah, there's definitely been criticism saying, people who are in instructional design departments or learning and development departments, their sphere of influence, let's say, is not as big as saying, hey, give me the operational data, and I want to analyze this and basically do some sort of a quality assurance analysis on it to see which paths we should follow and which paths we should optimize. And I think a lot of us actually do have access to that data. We just have to step outside of our comfort zone. Or what we have is the opportunity to ask questions up front. So ask a lot of questions up front, because the challenge is that you're a scenario. When somebody says, I want a scenario for my project, I want you to build a scenario for me. One of the challenges is that a scenario will fit, their situation, because they're so multifunctional. A scenario will work. The only problem is, are you focusing on the right behaviors? Are you focusing on the right errors and behaviors that drive the right kind of, the right kind of revenue back, right kind of return on investment? So what I think Kathy Moore's always trying to do with that formula that says, by this date, I'm going to try and impact this kind of bottom line metric, is that you're always then, because you've discovered what that big picture metric you're trying to impact is, it's not that you'll actually feel like you can impact it with the scenario alone, because that's really quite impossible for you to say, I'm going to impact our sales with this small scenario that I'm going to build, and somehow that's going to impact all these other things. It's only a piece, a cumulative piece of that final performance. Just like I said about the workshop, right? The workshop's really just almost like an orientation, just like your scenario pieces, where you get the coaching and the feedback to kind of ramp up, but the actual application happens on the job. And so your scenario is that ramp up and the practice and the coaching and the feedback that you get, the personalized stuff. But then later you still have to go back to the real world and say, where are my performance support pieces? Am I checking in with people again to see if they've applied some of these, or maybe they've reverted back to their old habits because those are easier, or they're stressed and they don't have the tools in place to actually start applying new things because they're not comfortable with them yet. So that's I think part of that, having this big business formula, even though you can't directly impact it with one piece. But also, I think it is also so that when you're looking at that formula, when you're working with your team, and maybe you're working with other departments, you're trying to engage them, you're going to say, I'm trying to impact something meaningful here, and it is this big, and I really can't do this alone. So who needs to be involved in this? Who needs to be supporting me, whether that's checking in with people, a month after they finish the learning intervention, supporting the same kinds of things that we're reinforcing in this scenario, supporting them on the floor, recognizing people for application. So there's so many things and other people that need to be a part of that process. So if we can have that formula, have the consensus that it takes more than one thing to impact that formula, and then saying, how can you help me? Can you help me impact this? I'm putting this piece in. What can you do to augment my efforts so that all of us are actually working towards the same outcome? Yeah, big stuff. I know it's not, we don't live in a perfect world, and sometimes things aren't as clear cut. But I think that we'd do a lot better if we were just more forward with asking for that help and being more realistic about what we can actually achieve with the small learning interventions and what it takes to really be successful with those. I've launched things where they go out and they're all alone, they're just this little candle that's burning, and there's a lot of wind, you know what I mean? And so what can we do to help that candle? What other candles can we light up along the way? Because I feel like a lot of these things are just like, hope it sticks. And there needs to be other people recognizing us at all levels, knowing that they are a part of that journey, so that candle doesn't get blown out, and it's not a standalone solution. And I'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, nobody does that anymore. Nobody just, puts out e-learning, expects it to fix everything. And I'm like, yeah, those are the people who don't know that there's companies out there who still make their living by like taking PowerPoints and putting them into click next slides and sliding in bullets one at a time saying that's e-learning. So that stuff's still happening, and I've seen it. I'm still looking at it. It's still hard to find good scenario examples. So I know that we've got a lot of work to do. So I didn't mean to have this video demotivate you in any way. Really, what I'm trying to do is just start these conversations, have people get over their challenge of, I don't have enough power to ask this. This is not my place. Of course it is. You're trying to do a great job. You're trying to be helpful and effective. You're trying to have impact. You're trying to save people money, time. You're trying to make people's lives better. Who else is going to ask those questions, right? Who else is going to ask for that support? You have to be the champion. So it's tough, but hey, somebody's got to do it, right? What else? Yes, I went to the Food and Wine Festival. I had a wonderful time because I was volunteering. I was doing the social media, and it was very fun. I took a lot of pictures of a lot of wonderful people having a lot of wine. It was really fun. And what else? Well, you probably have heard this before. I had years back, I don't know how, probably not years. I quit drinking coffee. And so 4 days ago, I quit drinking coffee again because I found I stopped drinking coffee as much, but then I started drinking lots of tea, and it was getting a little bit too much. So then I thought, hey, I'm just drinking tea. How bad can it be? Guess what? Those migraine headaches that you get after caffeine withdrawal, if you're the person who gets caffeine withdrawal, they're exactly the same if you're drinking tea, because I was drinking tea in such volumes it basically was making up my caffeine, addiction. So I'm on day 4. The headache on top of my head has finally stopped. And, I feel good. And I feel I'm going to keep this up for a while, as long as I want to. There's no pressure on me. I just wanted to try it and tell myself that if I go a day without coffee, I'm not going to be stuck with a debilitating headache. So that's where I want to be. And that's me signing out. Enough personal info. Take care.